I started out with hundreds of thousands of tumors that formed a skin that completely encapsulated both lungs, and I had enough cancer in my neck that it was literally strangling me. But I was diagnosed when I was 25 years old, and they did the radical throat dissection, they did experimental doses of radiation, and I was going to the emergency room 10 times a year. I was seeing my doctor every month so that he could tell me which set of specialists I would be seeing or which department heads I would be seeing, and I was taking 25 to 35 pills a day. And that was with commercial illegal marijuana, and I was doing probably 1 to 3 grams a day. And when I started growing my own medical marijuana, I went up to close to 3 ounces a week, 3 to 4 ounces a week. But I also stopped taking all pharmaceutical drugs except my thyroid hormone. My calcium completely stabilized, which had never happened in 10 years. I have put on 30 pounds, and I now weigh 126 pounds, which is huge, huge. The last time I weighed 126 pounds, I was 8 months pregnant.
So you attribute cannabis to a lot of your being able to live a normal, healthy life?
Oh, absolutely. You can see the difference in my medical chart. I only went to my doctor one time last year, and that was to have my medical marijuana card renewed. He's actually referring patients to me for marijuana questions now.
There you go. So did this play a role in the development of Stony Girl Farms?
Well, the thing is, in Oregon we have extremely limited numbers, and I needed to have large amounts of medicine, and it had to be very high quality. I was incredibly lucky. I've been gifted with medical grade strains from university professors from a couple different places that just came into my hands, and I've been able to use that to breed faster and faster strains. And with the cultivation practices we use, we've got it down to a 9-week cycle from transplant to harvest. So that makes a big difference.
So tell us about, what does Stony Girl Farms do?
We are a breeding facility, and we do a lot of seed production. We help end-of-life patients. That's primarily who we work with. Everyone in my garden was told they had 6 months to live or less many years ago. So that's what they told me in '93. They were like, okay, get a lawyer, write a will.
Now, it's interesting because this is kind of, Oregon is different than California in the way it goes. And how's it work in Oregon? How does patients get their medicine in Oregon? It's not the same as California.
We don't have dispensaries. We have groups where patients can go and network with each other, and they can share genetics, they can share strains, and you can reimburse a grower for their expenses, but it's rare that the community will tolerate that.
Now, one of the things that Stony Girl Farms is known for, of course, is their seed development for particular ailments. Can you kind of speak a little bit about how you go about developing new seeds?
Yes, we started with a strain called Berkeley that is a pure sativa that finishes in 4 weeks, and it's kind of edgy and very high crystal content. And we found that the flavor on it is quite recessive, so if you have a strain that you really like that takes a long time, I can cross it on Berkeley, and then you can have it in 6 weeks instead of whatever it is taking you.
Right. Now, if somebody would like to get in touch with Stony Girl Farms, how do they do that?
We are at www.growforme.com. That's GRO4ME.com.
Stony Girl, thank you so much for joining us here. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Henry Ford's first Model T was built to run on hemp gasoline, and the car itself was constructed from hemp. On his large estate, Ford was photographed among his hemp fields. The car, grown from the soil, had hemp plastic panels whose impact strength was 10 times stronger than steel. Henry Ford ran 40,000 vehicles on hemp fuel from only 10,000 acres. The emissions are what you exhale, and the next year's crop reconverts it back into oxygen. That's a natural cycle fuel. We think that our ethanol and biofuels and flex fuel systems are all the cutting edge, but biofuel development, of course, is nothing new. Way back in the 1930s, Henry Ford was hard at work in the alternative fuel sector, and in 1941 he constructed a hemp-fueled and hemp-bodied prototype car. The plastic body panels were composed of 70% cellulose fibers, including industrial strength, mixed with a resin binder, and apparently they were pretty sturdy. A guy beats on the trunk with an axe and it fails to leave a mark. Industrial hemp won't make you high. It has no THC in it, but its association with marijuana has historically been a major legal stumbling block. There's some of you that think I'm full of shit, but the actual footage of 1941 should be proof enough for you.
Amongst the thousands of products made from hemp, one of the most extraordinary is Henry Ford's plastic car. Built in 1941, it contained cellulose fibers derived from hemp, sisal, and wheat straw. The plastic was lighter than steel, yet could withstand 10 times the impact without denting.
Hemp is an alternative to petroleum. Hemp grows like mad from border to border in America, so shortages are very unlikely. And unlike petroleum, unless we run out of soil, hemp is renewable. Growing and harvesting the stuff has much less environmental impact than procuring oil. Hemp fuel is biodegradable, so oil spills become fertilizer and no eco-catastrophes. Hemp fuel does not contribute to sulfur dioxide air poisoning. Other noxious emissions like carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons are radically slashed by using biodiesel. Hemp fuel is non-toxic and only a mild skin irritant. Anybody who's ever cleaned out an old carburetor with gasoline can confirm the same is not true for petroleum. Growing hemp for fuel would be tremendous boom for American farmers and the agricultural industry, as opposed to what people like Bush have to say about it. And that's why hemp might not go anywhere as a fuel alternative. Oil interests are big and dominate likewise into politics. Selling any man on the idea that will cost him more than he'll benefit requires an amazingly skilled orator or a gun. Unfortunately, unless you're the federal government, gunpoint conversion are usually illegal. So PR is the best bet now. There are many people working hard on this front, including the hemp car and the intrepid crew. Currently grinding up for the Trans-American tour, the hemp car plans to spread the good word of hemp fuel viability at stops in both the U.S. and Canada. For whatever good it will do, they should make sure to stop in Washington. The current oil crisis of our nation's dependency and sometimes pretty sickening foreign sources might find a new chief executive with an open mind to fuel sources other than Texas tea. Regardless of his own oilty bank accounts, of course hemp fuel may not take off. It might dry up like those hemp crops left unattended after the feds banned their cultivation in the 1930s. One way or the other, we should consider freeing up the market to innovative solutions with alternative fuels like hemp seed oil. It couldn't hurt, and it stands the chance to help. In doing so, when Henry Ford told the New York Times reporter that ethanol alcohol was the fuel of the future in 1925, he was expressing an opinion that was widely shared in the automotive industry. The fuel of the future is going to come from the fruit that shumach out of the road, or from apples, weeds, sawdust, almost anything, he said. There is fuel in every bit of vegetable matter that can be fermented. There's enough enough alcohol in 1 year's yield of an acre of potatoes to drive the machinery necessary to cultivate the fields for hundreds of years. Ford recognized the utility of the hemp plant. He constructed a car of resin-stiffened hemp fiber and ran the car on ethanol-made hemp. Ford knew the hemp could produce vast economic